Real Entrepreneurs TV, we're here for another excellent episode. Very excited about today's guest. Remember, Real Entrepreneurs TV, we're here to educate, equip, and empower aspiring entrepreneurs. And this next guest today has given me personally the tools, has given me the resources through his authorship, and also through his material on YouTube that I've consumed. We would like to introduce the Real Entrepreneurs TV community to Mr. Bob Burg. How are you today?
I'm great. How about yourself? Thank you so much for having me on.
No problem. So just to let the audience know, I'm outside right now, but we had to get this interview done. I'm actually locked outside of my home studio. The keys are on the way, but we will pursue. We just have a no excuse zone with our Real Entrepreneurs TV tribe.
Well, that's why you're so successful.
Yeah, I would hope so. Thank you very much. So before we get into the Go Giver series, Bob, can you tell our audience that may have never heard about you a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background and who you are?
Yeah, I began in broadcasting, actually. First
really?
As a radio sportscaster, then a television news guy. I was the late night news guy at a very, very small ABC affiliate in the Midwestern United States. I wasn't really very good at it, and it wasn't long until I was no longer a newscaster. So I like to say I graduated into sales. The problem, though, was I knew nothing about sales. I had never had any formal training, and the company I was with at the time, we'll just say their training was negligible at best. And so I floundered for the first few months. Then one day I was in a bookstore and I came across a couple of books on sales, which doesn't seem like a big deal right now. But back then, 40 years ago or so, you just didn't hear about those kinds of things as much. And so the two books were about, one was by Zig Ziglar, the other was by Tom Hopkins, two absolute sales legends. And I got the materials and I just began studying. So I'd go home after work and into the wee hours of the morning, I'd be reading and learning and highlighting and underlining and dog-earing and post-it noting, everything and practicing and within about 3 weeks, my sales were really improving dramatically. And that was very encouraging to me because it said, if you have a methodology for something, if you learn a system for something, then really there's nothing you can't accomplish. To this day, I would define a system as simply the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles, the key being predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired result of B, well, you know that all you need to do is A and continue to do A and continue to do A, and eventually get the desired results of B. I think Michael Gerber talks about that so much in his Great E-Myth series. And so the lesson for me was, if you don't know how to do something that you want to know how to do, find out who's already done it and learn from them, right? So I really began studying sales and from there studying personal development, right? So I was getting all the great books like the How to Win Friends and Influence People and Think and Grow Rich, As a Man Thinketh, and The Magic of Thinking Big and Psycho-Cybernetics, all these great books that build you on the inside. And of course, we build ourselves on the inside. Success manifests on the outside. So I just was really into sales, personal development. I eventually worked my way up to sales manager of another company and began teaching others how to do what was working for me. And at that point, I kind of morphed into a speaking business. And from there, I began writing books first as a way of just positioning myself in the marketplace. So my first book was Endless Referrals, Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales. And then years and years later, teamed up with the great writer, John David Mann, and we developed that first Go Giver book, and it became a series.
Hey, Bob, and what's the significance? So for our authors, our full-time authors, what's the significance of collaborating with other writers? Because other people may perceive it as a ghostwriter, or some people may perceive it as, this guy didn't really write the book. So how is that relationship and how is it beneficial to pull those two worlds together to put together awesome content?
I think there are different types of collaboration. So let's say you've just got two people who they each bring a significant type of strength to the table that complements one another in terms of certain abilities and so forth. Well, they could easily team up, and it's just, one handles one specific area, one handles another. And that's fine. There are some collaborations in which it's really one is really a ghostwriter. They're totally just the writer telling another person's story, that sort of thing. Now, in John's and my case, John is just a superb storyteller and writer, as well as great entrepreneur. With me, I'm a how-to author. So all of my books before the Go-Giver series and ones I've written afterwards are how-to, step one, step two, that's me. I could never write a story like the Go-Giver and make it sing like John did. So this kind of collaboration was very easy for me. First, John's a joy to work with, and he's such a great author that that he just has strengths that I don't have in terms of putting things into words. So so there's all sorts of different collaborators. Now John is who's co-authored a number of books now and a number of best-selling books. He's sort of the go-to person now of choice from different publishers and agents who have a client or a writer who maybe is a celebrity or a business leader who really has a story to tell, but they're just not writers at all. So John is the person they'll bring in to actually, that is his job, to take their words or theirs and put it into book. So you know what I'm saying? So there's just different types of collaborations. I think like any entrepreneurial venture, it's a matter of determining where the strengths mesh with each other and, making 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah, I think that's awesome advice. So to educate our aspiring authors to be an author as a career option, what's normally the misunderstandings that are out there in the industry that you've discovered? And how do you suggest people overcome those misunderstandings and become a successful author full time?
I think there are two big misunderstandings if someone wants to be a full-time author. And I'm not talking about if they are a Stephen King or, someone who writes fiction, which is going to sell millions of books and they're going to have a whole backed up, PR machine that the publisher, non-celebrity author, we're not, that's not us. Okay. Business authors have to realize first that the writing part, the book, is typically just the I don't want to say a loss leader, because it's not like you need to lose money on it, but it's just really the attractor. It's that first element in the process. That book is really there to position you as the expert, as the authority. And so whatever you're really looking to accomplish, whether it's coaching, speaking, consulting, or a combination of them, what have you, the book is really just that credibility builder. That's one mistake, thinking that that the book is the end all be all. It's usually not. The second part, though, is thinking that the publisher is going to do your publicity for you and your marketing. Again, if you're a celebrity, that's one thing. I'm talking about if you're like most of us, right? No, it is going to be totally up to you to do your marketing. You're ultimately responsible for that.
And those are the exact misunderstandings that I had. If somebody was to have an awesome book, they get an advance from a publisher. The publisher pays for all the marketing. They just show up for the book signings. That was my assumption. So thank you for clearing that up.
I think it's pretty much everyone's assumption when they start out.
My next question was, so tell us how the Go-Giver book even came about. Like, what was it? Who had the idea, and who put the action behind it to let's make this thing a story?
Yeah, so many years ago, this is back in the 90s. Remember, I'm kind of an old guy now, so this is way back in the 90s. I had my book, Endless Referrals, Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales, which was really my first big book. It was a how-to book, and it was to really position myself. A little friends within the National Speakers Association said, Berg, you really need to get a book out there to position yourself, make it easier to market yourself. You'll get higher fees. You'll be, more in demand. So that I wrote that for very, utilitarian purposes. It was a marketing tool, and that worked very successfully. I also did well, in terms of sales, but it was a traditional how-to book. It was for entrepreneurs and salespeople to learn how to go out there and develop those really great relationships with others within their marketplace in order to attain people feeling good about them, wanting to do business with them, knowing them, liking them, trusting them, and so forth. And it was a how-to, was my system for doing so. Now, throughout the years, though, I'd always enjoyed reading business parables. As you know, parables, which is really when you want to communicate an idea, there are few things more powerful and effective than a story. And I thought for a long time, how can we take endless referrals and put it into a parable? And so the first question I really asked myself is, so what is the basic element, I guess you could say, of a person who's able to cultivate those know, like, and trust relationships both quickly and effectively? And their basic essence is that they are always giving. Their focus is on giving value to others. And so it was easy to come up with the title, The Go-Giver, which, by the way, is not the opposite of a go-getter. We love go-getters. Go-getters take action, right? And as an entrepreneur, right? You've got to take action, because even the best thoughts, the greatest ideas, the best of intention, without action put into the mix, nothing's going to happen. So no, we love go-getters. The neat thing is that there's no natural division between a go-getter and a go-giver. Many go-getters are also go-givers, and we would say every go-giver is a go-getter. The opposite of a go-giver then is a go-taker. That's the person whose focus is on the take. It's all about them. Take, without having added value to the person, to the process, to the situation. And it just doesn't work out, because, nobody's going to do business with you because you have a quota to meet, right? They're not going to do business with you because you need the money. They're going to do business with you because they believe it'll be in their best interest to do so, which is the only reason anyone should do business with you or with me or with anyone else. So the best thing we can do is, rather than be a go-taker, be a go-giver. Focus on creating immense value for the marketplace. Go above and beyond, provide such an immense customer experience that they want to do business with you. They want to refer you to others. So we say be a go-getter and a go-giver, just not a go-taker. So, I had the basic kind of thought about a story, but remember, I'm a how-to author. So I knew that there was no way I was going to be able to take, a story like this and do it justice. So I contacted my friend John David Mann, who I'd never actually met in person at the time. And I don't think we'd ever spoken on the phone. Everything was through email. He was the editor-in-chief of a magazine I used to work for. And every month, he would review and edit my articles, and he always did such an amazing job of making everything I wrote so much better. And there, at the time, few people knew about John other than within a certain niche. But fortunately, I was one of them who knew him and knew of him and of his brilliance. So I asked him if he would be the lead writer and storyteller for this idea that I had. And fortunately, he agreed to do that, and we collaborated on it. And that's really how the Go-Giver came about. And we just, we wrote it together, but he was definitely the lead writer, believe me. and it was a really fun experience.
So Bob, true or false that the story is really about you?
No, I would say this. I would say that, when we look at the different characters, it was Joe, okay, who was the main protege in the story. I would say Joe is everyone, right? Because at one time or another, we've all been Joe or Josephine if we're a woman. So we've all been Joe or Josephine, someone who was really kind of starting out, had great potential, was ambitious and aggressive and knew what he wanted to go at, right? And yet was sort of didn't quite have the focus right. There was something a little bit lacking. And then, if we're fortunate, we had people along the way that gave us guidance and we were open enough to listen. As an example, I remember many, many years ago, after I'd first gotten in sales and I was doing, pretty well because I had learned how to sell and so forth. But after a couple of years, I was doing well, but certainly not anywhere near my potential. And I was working for another company and was selling a high-end item. And I was in a slump. And I was really having trouble getting out of that slump. And I came back to the office one day really mad at myself for really blowing a sale that should have happened, and it would have really benefited the other person. And of course, I didn't get a commission because the sale didn't happen, and it was really on me that it didn't. And I must have looked pretty disgusted at myself because this guy said to me, and he was an older guy, wasn't even in the sales department, and I didn't even know him very well. But he was one of these guys, he was quiet, but whenever he did say something, it was always profound. So I remember him asking me, Berg, he was a last name kind of guy. He said, Berg, can I give you some advice? And I said, yeah, absolutely, please do. And he said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target, he said, is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, he said, you'll get a reward, and that reward will come in the form of money, and you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It ain't the target itself. Your target is serving others. That's when it first hit me, that great salesmanship is never about the salesperson. Great salesmanship is not even about the product or service, as important as that is. Great salesmanship is always about that other person. It's about that person whose life you want to add value to. It's about how that other person's life becomes better as a result of knowing you and doing business with you. And when we approach it that way, now we're 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game. Well, that's what Joe learned in the story. That when you can shift your focus, and John and I would both say that the basic premise of the Go-Giver is that shifting your focus from getting to giving in this context simply meaning constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that not only is doing that a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well.
Yeah.
So, I think everyone's Joe. We've all been in that position where we thought we knew, but we really needed a little adjustment for it to make sense.
And I appreciate that, Bob. So one quick question to the person that takes this advice: how do they make sure that they are not giving too much and putting themselves in compromising positions? Because we have people that are natural givers, and they don't know how to measure the point of, I need to make an ROI on this decision or on this time. So how can people kind of draw the line in the sand in business? So we know in life you can be humble and give, but in business, kind of where is that benchmark of expectation or the ask in the middle of that giving?
So great question. And first, it's very, very important, I think, to understand that there's nothing about being a go-giver that is congruent with being anyone's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way or being taken advantage of. in any way. Being a go-giver is all about focus, understanding that the way it naturally works is the more value you provide to other human beings, the marketplace, the more you're going to receive for very logical business reasons. Now, the other question though is, when do you draw a line so that, if someone either purposely or sometimes not even purposely, they don't even know better, they tend to want too much from you without paying, and you've got to be able to. So I think this is where first we've got to understand, hopefully in advance of the situation, but if you find it happening to you, the good news is, well, now you know. So now you can plan, because it's always easier, remember, to be able to handle a situation effectively and tactfully and diplomatically when we know in advance and we can prepare for it. So let's just say you're someone who is an information provider or a coach, and you've given some, in order to create that credibility, that understanding that that person knows you are competent and someone who they can trust to be able to help them. You've given away some information and some advice and some, what have you. And the person, rather than saying, okay, well, so let me hire you as my coach or whatever, they keep asking questions. Well, at a certain point, what you need to be able to do is, again, very tactfully and diplomatically, you say to the person, that's a great question, and I'm so glad to know that you found some of these interactions to be very helpful and of value. The neat thing is, this is what I do. So if you would like to have a formal coach and client, or mentor and client, or however you do it, relationship, I'd be honored to do so. Boom. And so, now you say, let's talk about the next step. Now, if that person is just, if they kind of back off from that, well, they're not someone who is going to, but again, but you always need to say it in a way that makes this person feel good about themselves, doesn't make them feel like, hey, pal, you're asking a lot of questions without, we've always got to do it in a way that congratulates them for the question, for what's happened, and then give them the next advancing step.
That's fantastic. We're running close to our time, Bob, so I want to make sure that you get an opportunity to go through our fire round. So our fire round is the 2 questions that we ask each and every guest that come on to the show. So are you ready? You need
I will. I never know if I'm ready for these kinds of things. I can say I'm ready. I never know if I am, but I will do my best.
Yeah, fantastic. So, Bob, if you lost everything today, right? Everything stripped down, how would you get back to where you are today? So you lost everything, had to go away and come back. How would you get back to where you are today?
Well, I think the first thing I do is I'd assess what my strengths are, and I'd say what strengths do I have that can benefit other people, because that's our marketplace, right? And so, I would then build a new business around that. So what information do I have? What am I good at that there's a market for, that people will pay for? And then I get right back to reaching out and start making, reconnecting with people, letting them know what I'm doing. First, of course, looking for ways to bring value to them. But I also know at this point that I've built a very good network of people as a result of what I've provided. And I would just go about it that way.
Okay, and real quickly, to go a little bit deeper, how would you do that? How would you do that research to find out the needs in the marketplace? So for the people that's in IT, the people at personal fitness or personal development, how do they assess their marketplace to figure out where can they plug and play?
Well, I look at people that they already know who are in that space. As clients, as customer, or people who are buying that kind of thing, and say, what is it right now that the market is giving you that you really enjoy? What areas do you see that there's room for improvement, that someone could come in and really fill in some gaps? So if you can find places where there's a problem, where there's a challenge, and you can fulfill that challenge, well, now you create that space for yourself. Of course, it doesn't have to be something that isn't there. It can be something that already is there. It is needed. People know they need. People are already serving them, but perhaps you could do it in certain ways. You could carve your niche out in a way that others don't. Again, so it's different for different people. But I would find out from those people who are your target market, what is it they're looking for. Remember, when you think about it, selling is simply discovering what the other person wants, needs, or desires, and helping them to get it. First, you've got to know what it is they need, want, or desire, and do you have the ability to help them with that?
Perfect answer. So you are more ready than you think.
I think we all are. We just need to know how to approach it. And how to approach it when and if that time comes. And hopefully, two things. Hopefully that time won't come where we're so have not, where we lose everything. Usually it's not that bad. But that even if we do, that we've built a network of people, okay, who feel good about us, who know us, like us, and trust us, who we can reach out to for connections, for knowledge, for whatever it is that we might need at the time.
Right. And last question. So remember, you lost everything and you have to go far away. What is the one book that you would take with you? Can't be The Go-Giver.
Yeah, it wouldn't be. I don't learn from my own books.
But you have to take one book. I see dozens behind you. But what's the one book that you'll take with you?
I would say, it's a book many people have never heard of. It was came out about 12 years ago, and it was after this person passed away. It's by a man named Harry Browne, Browne. It's called The Secret of Selling Anything. And really what it's about, it's about understanding human nature and being able to work within human nature as it relates to sales. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful book. It was actually written in the 60s, but it was never meant to be published. I think he was using it for his own sales team that he was training. He wrote a bunch of books, great books that were New York Times bestsellers, but nothing on sales. This was just his, that I think. And when he passed away, his widow found the 2 different hard drives, each with short manuals, and she told another person about them, who was a direct response person, and he published them. And he titled it How to Sell Anything to Anybody. But it is absolutely a book that if there was one book that I would give to someone at 18 years old and say, this is what you need to know, and there isn't just one book, there's many books, but if there was just one and that I was giving to an 18-year-old starting their life and they had to know, this would be the book. Because, in my opinion, understanding human nature is about the most important aspect of living a successful life. Because who are we dealing with all the time, no matter what? Other humans. So understanding, the general psychological characteristics, feelings, behavioral traits of other human beings as they relate to all human beings, very, very important. I thought Harry did a wonderful job in that book.
Yeah, well, I'll make sure I check that one out. And we appreciate your time, Bob. What is your favorite piece of advice to give to aspiring entrepreneurs? So most of our audience is either fed up with the jobs they are at, and they have skills that they know that they can do much more with, or they've just jumped out full time and just looking for that extra encouragement or empowerment. What is that best piece of advice? Well, your favorite piece of advice to share with people at your conferences or in person?
Well, I think that Zig Ziglar probably said it best in his most famous saying, and it's a saying that is often misquoted, which is too bad because I think it's such a perfect saying. I wish people quoted it correctly. So I will quote it correctly if I may. And this is when he said, you can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. And you think about it. You can have everything in life you want, okay? But first, you've got to help other people get what they want. So when you focus on bringing immense value to the marketplace. And remember, value is always in the eyes of the beholder. It's not what we think is valuable about our offering. It's what they think is valuable about our offering, which is why focusing on them, asking questions, listening, all those things are so important. But to the degree that we focus on others, that is really the degree to which we are creating the environment for our own success.
Yeah, that's perfect. How can the audience get in touch with you, Bob?
The best way is just at Burg, BURG.com. And they can look at the, look up the books and get a free chapter if they'd like, to see if they like where it's headed. And then they can always click over to Amazon to, through the site to get it. I have a video series out now on our blog at the blog site. And so we welcome people to come to the site and check out the different resources.
Yeah, and my recommendation in addition to that is the Audible. So I listened to the audio book. I listened to it the first time and then about 2 times after that. So,
wow.
Thank you for your time, Bob. Phenomenal story, phenomenal
information. Oh, I appreciate you so much. I love what you're doing, and I love the value that you're bringing to so many people. So really keep up the great work. You're an inspiration to me.
Immense value. We're focusing on it. Yep. Thank you, sir.